Tying up an interesting wet fly today from Ray Bergman's book Trout. This is called the June. Now it's pretty straightforward and it looks like it's a simple little fly, and it actually is a simple fly to tie. But one of the interesting things is the body on this. The body is all made up of floss, and it is an alternating white and red floss. In the video when I'm tying this, I discuss some of the difficulties that you run across in terms of having those alternating colors and how to get around that. But not a whole lot of wet flies, at least that I've run across, that have that. Sometimes they'll have the base body color and then they'll use another color twisted up as a rib, as an accent, but this one is tied in so that they pretty much alternate each other. Otherwise, pretty straightforward with a black hackle for the throat and a light turkey for the wing. But that is the June. I'll get started tying. Start the June with my hook on the vise. This is a Mustad 33.99 in a size 6. I'll go ahead and debarb the hook. As I mentioned before, there really is not a whole lot to this fly. There's the body, which is an alternating white and red. There is a throat of black hackle and a turkey wing. Because of the floss, I'm going to start with a Danville 6/0 in white. I don't want to darken up that floss. I'm also going to more or less make the bulk of the body to be white on this. I'm going to advance my thread down. I'm going to stop just a little bit after the point of the hook. Now I'm going to tie in the red floss. I'm using a Danville a Danville 4-strand Rayon floss in red. The reason I'm going to do that is I'm tying this in more or less as a rib as opposed to actually alternating. It would be very difficult to tie in, or I should say wrap in the white and the red actually alternating. And the problem you run into is that if I try to wrap in the red as a flat floss, the fibers tend to separate, it shifts around a little bit, it just doesn't go in quite as smooth. So I've got that. I've got a white Danville 4-strand Rayon floss I'm going to use for the mainstay of the body. I'm using all 4 strands of both of these for this size hook. Secure that in. Now I'm going to wrap up along the hook shank, collecting both those colored floss along the hook shank. One downside here is you'll notice that on your side you see some of that red showing up underneath the thread. See, on my side you don't see that. Now I suppose if you really wanted to make certain that none of that kind of transferred up or translated through the white floss here when this gets wet, you might go down, put another coat, another layer of white thread down and back up. I'm going to wrap this in as the body. Then I'm going to put the red in. I'm not going to be as concerned about having exactly 5 wraps because it's not a rib, but I am going to put it in with a slight twist, which I'll demonstrate to help kind of hold that together, but I want to try and get it in flat. So you might have noticed that some of the rayon kind of frayed on me as I was wrapping that in. Part of that is rough hands, and very easily kind of split some of these fibers and everything. Some people even use, especially with silk floss, they'll use white gloves so that the oils and things on their hands don't taint the color of the floss. So with the body in, I'm going to take the red, and I'll see if I can demonstrate this for you real quick. If I just keep that flat and try to wrap that in, see how wide that gets? And it's going to take up a lot. I could have less, but some of these fibers and everything start to split out a little bit. So rather than do that and try to have even alternating, what I'm going to do is I'm going to twist this just a little bit. I want to give it just a slight twist so that when I bring it around, you can see it's kind of flattening, but it's not as wide. Just keep that little bit of a twist in there. That will flatten out as you wrap it. Ends up looking almost kind of like a candy cane. If you want to have those a little narrower, then go with, say, 3 or 2 strands of the red floss. Again, I'm trying to get that to look more like alternating. So I've got essentially what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bands of the white, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bands of the red. So it kind of evens out. That's what the idea behind alternating is. But you just got to be careful that you don't let it separate as you're wrapping that in. Now I'm going to change over to my black thread. I'm using a Danville 6/0 in black. When I do this, I like to have, I don't know if you can see this or not, but if I have it right now the way I have it, the black comes around the far side, the white is on this side, so I have a gap right here. If I cut those, I end up with a little nub of black and a little nub of white. What I like to do is have both of these collected up close to the hook and then bring them together and get those thread wraps going backwards to collect all of that together, and then I don't end up with as much of a tag or little nub of thread that I have to cover up. Smooth this off, get to the back of the head right there, and I will tie in my throat. My throat is just some black hackle. I'm going to use some schlappen. I'm going to get an even amount from both sides of this feather. I want to get both of these 90 degrees so that the tips even up. And I will strip one side off, flip the feather over like this so that I can then get the other side. This will give me more or less, both these slips will be concave to concave, they'll flatten out. Now sometimes the feathers, if they're not that great, they kind of all separate anyway, which they're going to do once they get in the water. But at least having it this way, I have a thin throat like this, has a little bit of a sweep to it, and it ties in and looks nice. Scissors in here and trim away that excess. Nice and close. And I will smooth this off for our wing. The wing on the June is a light turkey. I have two feathers here, a right and a left, that I will cut slips out for from both of these. I'll take the one slip that's going to go on your side here, which is concave this way, and I'll peel that off first. Then I'll take the other one, which is going to go on my side, and put it on top of the one that I just peeled off, trying to get those tips matched up, and then I can just peel it off of this feather. The important thing at this point is getting those tips matched up as best you can. So now I have the length on both of them the same. Now I want to check my width. And I think I have both of these about the same. They're good enough, I think. Got one that's bumped up there, but I think they're the same width. So I'm going to go with that, and I'm going to tie this in. I want the tips to go past the bend just a little bit, not much. If I had a tail on here, imagine that. If I had a tail from here to about here, I'd want those tips to go about halfway down the tail. It's got a little bit of a curve to it, and that's something that I've noticed with these particular feathers, that a lot of these wings are coming out with a little bit of a curve to them off to one side. I don't think it's going to affect the fishability of it, and if these end up getting framed or something, I don't think it's going to affect them. They'll still look just fine. With the excess clipped away, I'll bring my thread down behind the eye of the hook, come backwards, covering up all those butt ends, just cleaning up the head space. Wanting to make certain I get that all covered up and smooth, even though I'm going to put some lacquer on this. I'm going to counterspin my bobbin to flatten out the thread. That will also help smooth off the head on this, so that when I put the 2 coats of lacquer on there, that's really all I need, is just the 2 coats, and it ends up with a nice, smooth, polished head. Trim away my thread. A little bit of head cement on both sides of that head. And as I said, I'll come back and I'll put a couple coats of black lacquer on that, smooth that off. But that is the June. A little bit of that turkey wing on my side that is separated further down here where I was pinching it, but I think it will. It's all going to flatten, separate, and everything in the water pretty much as this, especially after the fish start hitting this. It's just going to start getting torn up. But then again, that's fine. I suppose if you wanted to, with that floss body, you could put some head cement on that, put on a light coat of some sort of lacquer or varnish, maybe flex cement or something, to help reinforce that a little bit. And then that floss body won't get chewed up so quick if you start catching, when you start catching fish with this. But there you have it. Handsome little fly. Kind of interesting technique with the floss body alternating colors. That's the June. Thanks for watching today. Thanks for joining me at the Vise today. I hope you learned at least a new pattern, if not a new technique, maybe a tip or trick here and there. If you have any questions about this fly or any of the techniques used in constructing this pattern, please leave them in the comments section down below. If you go to the trouble to ask a question, I'll go to the trouble to answer it. If you'd like to help Dressed Irons, Please share this video with your friends and anybody you think that might enjoy this pattern. Until next time, remember, it's fly tying. If you're not having fun, then you're doing it wrong.